Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, two elderly women were stabbed in Jerusalem. Netanyahu meets with the children of fallen soldiers, and Israeli and Palestinian children come together to play soccer for peace. I'm Denise Wood here with the latest news in Israel. The wave of terror is continuing, and two elderly women were stabbed this morning in Jerusalem. The victims are two elderly women who are around 80 years old and were taken to a Jerusalem hospital with moderate injuries. The attack took place in a wooded area near a promenade in the East Talpiot neighborhood. The women were walking in a group of 5 people when two masked attackers appeared and stabbed them in the upper body. The attackers then fled the scene of the attack toward the nearby East Jerusalem neighborhood Jabal Mukaber. Police have since captured the two attackers and say they suspect the incident was a nationalistic attack. The two women were attacked in a very popular Jerusalem area that's usually filled with joggers, walkers, and tourists. This stabbing attack comes as the wave of terror is raging on in Israel, which has so far injured numerous individuals and resulted in the death of 29 Israelis and 4 foreigners. Israel is stepping up efforts to stop the French peace initiative, and Prime Minister Netanyahu says bilateral talks are the best bet for achieving peace. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu argued against the plan in a meeting with Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders, who's currently visiting Israel. Netanyahu says the French initiative to hold a regional summit will allow the Palestinians to avoid direct negotiations and make peace even more remote. Before meeting with Netanyahu, Reynders also visited the Palestinian Authority and indicated that Belgium backs the French plan.
Our settlement is really eats up the possibility of reaching a two-state solution. We talked about the French initiative and the need to do our utmost to support such initiative and what is really needed, looking for Belgium also to be present in such meeting if when that takes place. We talked about our intentions as Palestine to go to the Security Council to present a resolution on settlement issues.
We are supporting the French initiative because we need to do something. We need to have at least a conference and then maybe to start a process. And we are very open to take part, if it's possible, from Belgium in such a process. I said that we are open again to organize some meetings among business people from both sides, from Palestinian Authority territories and from Israel. But we are asking to go further with the same two-state solution since so many years that we are so afraid to see that it will be more and more difficult to do that due to the settlements. We have sent a lot of condemnations months after months about the settlements.
Israel rejected the French plan last month, saying the best way to resolve the conflict between the two groups is direct bilateral negotiations. Israel says it's ready to begin direct talks immediately and without preconditions. And it looks like this isn't the last we'll hear about the French peace initiative. Next week, Netanyahu will meet with the French foreign minister, who will be in the region to discuss the initiative. Memorial Day begins tonight in Israel, and the country is already working to honor its fallen soldiers, along with the family they left behind. In preparation for Memorial Day, IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot attended a military ceremony in Jerusalem to salute the nation's 23,447 fallen soldiers killed since the foundation of the state. All of the graves are marked with Israeli flags, and Eisenkot praised the memory of the fallen soldiers for defending their country. Eisenkot also spoke to the families of the fallen soldiers and pledged that the IDF will continue to support them and cherish the memory of the soldiers who gave their lives for their country. And Eisenkot isn't the only one who's working to memorialize the fallen soldiers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also hosted a group of children who lost their fathers in battle. 5 of the fathers fell during the Gaza War in the summer of 2014, and this marks the 3rd year that the IDF Widows and Orphans organization put together a gathering with the Prime Minister at his office in Jerusalem. During the meeting, the kids discussed the tragedy of losing a close relative in war, and one boy even asked the Prime Minister how he feels when he sends soldiers into the battlefield. Netanyahu told the children he feels like he's with them on the front lines, and not like a prime minister sitting in an office.
אני יכול להגיד לכם אני אומר את זה, אתם צעירים, מאוד צעירים. אני הייתי יותר מבוגר מכם שאחי נפל. וגם אז היה לי מאוד 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 קשה. וחשבתי שהחיים שלי תמיד יהיו עם מין פגם עמוק. כן, כאילו חסר משהו, נכון? אז קודם כל זה נכון. אבל החיים אחר כך מתמלאים בדברים אחרים.
And the prime minister certainly would know how it feels. Netanyahu was a member of the elite Sayed Matkal army unit and took part in a number of dangerous combat missions. Netanyahu also lost his brother Yonatan, who died in the Entebbe raid in 1976. As we get ready for Israel's Memorial Day, we're remembering all the Israeli soldiers who gave their lives for their country. But while we remember their sacrifice, we also want to take a look at those who have served in the Israeli army and what they think about their service. Danny Grossman served in the American Air Force as an F-4 navigator before moving to Israel and joining the Israeli Air Force. He's actually the only American in the modern era to serve in both Air Forces, and he even received a Medal of Honor in the Israeli Air Force. He's here to tell us more. So first of all, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Obviously, the question on everyone's mind, you started in the American Air Force. What made you decide to come to Israel?
Well, I think the origin of this was when I was a 19-year-old student. I just opened the March of the Living last week, telling my story in 60 seconds as a challenge to all of the thousands of American youth who were there. When I was 19 years old, I was a student at university at Columbia and the Jewish Theological Seminary. And I went with my brother on a Jewish holiday, on Jewish fast day, Shivas Har B'Tammuz, and we walked in Dachau. And I realized that experience, what that meant to the Jewish people. And I swore to myself, I remember writing in my journal that day that I was going to move to Israel and dedicate myself to protecting the Jewish people. And fast forward 30, 40 years, I've actually done that. And I think that was the trigger. When I was a student on the junior year abroad at Hebrew University, I actually even wanted to go see if I could fly here. And of course they said, who are you? And so I went back, flew 6 years in the US Air Force, got myself checked out on all the cool stuff in Phantoms. And then when I came here, I was actually ready to go.
Very cool. So obviously you moved to Israel. You didn't just move here. You joined the Air Force, and you've been in two different Air Forces. What was your experience like in both of them? How was that different for you personally?
Well, they're different Air Forces, but they're both the best at what they do. The US Air Force is absolutely the best Air Force in the free world, and it does its job. And it was a real pleasure to be able to fly there and learn and develop a high level of professionalism there in flying. But when I came here, this is yours. Everything here, you're flying to protect your country. After 2,000 years in the diaspora, we're finally coming home, and this is our country. And everything you do drills down to that. And it gives you a tremendous sense of urgency, of pride. I was very fortunate to be selected to fly in a long-range mission to Iraq, a reconnaissance mission, in which everything, Murphy's Law, that could go wrong went wrong. We still got the mission done, got in, got out, and for that we got that medal. But the amazing thing is that I felt always that there was a real sense of purpose, and that's what gave me personal satisfaction for everything I did.
So today is the start of Israel's Memorial Day. How is that special for you, especially after your service in the Israeli Air Force?
When I approach Memorial Day, I think of, again, the people who I knew, the people who made the ultimate sacrifice, and their families. I have a daughter, Ariella, who was named after one of my friends, Aron Aralakatz, who got the Medal of Honor. I got it, like I said, I got a medal, but it was really a no-brainer. You're in a situation and you either do what you're supposed to do and you're lucky enough to come home or not. Katz, however, Aaron Katz was, who's the son-in-law of Rabbi David Hartman from the Hartman Institute. And Katz was religious, and he was a religious navigator during the Yom Kippur War at a time when both navigators and phantoms were new, and also a religious person was something different. And he himself had this tremendous belief in the correctness of everything we do, and people just wanted to fly with him. He didn't get a medal for a specific mission, but throughout Israel's hardest war, a 3-week war, he was someone who people just wanted to fly with. He was someone who gave people the confidence and the belief in what they were doing was correct. And I think of him, I think of people like Ilan Ramon, who flew also on our squadron. He was an F-16 pilot, but Ilan actually got checked out on high altitude reconnaissance, flying in a NASA suit, the same pressure suit which he later flew in the shuttle. He actually flew that first in our squadron. And Ilan was also someone who, he was not only the first astronaut here from this country, but Ilan grasped significance of what it meant to be the first astronaut of the reborn Jewish state. So when he made Kiddush, he was doing that as Kiddush Hashem, literally. And where he took up a Torah, everything he did gave that sense. And even when he played music like Imagine, which shows, if there are no borders, no countries, he grasped the significance of what it was to be. A person who also flew in Elon, of course, also flew in the mission to Osirak, into the bombing of the reactor. The youngest pilot who took part in that mission was a guy named Yair Rachmo. And Rachmo was actually the youngest pilot. He was in the F-15s, which flew cover for the F-16s. And he was a tremendously gifted young man. I remember he actually was killed in an accident in my squadron, even though the Osirak mission, he was flying an F-15. He later came to our squadron in Phantoms, and his wing folded on takeoff. He tried to save the airplane. He was actually able to control it, but then he lost it. And Yair, even though he was so gifted, but he had this love for Israel. And every year we gather and we make, with the family, we make a tiyul. We go together, something to understand and to love Israel by walking with your feet. These are things which connect you with our people, with our country, and with our heritage. Ron Pecker, who was the former commander of Tel Nof, and he was the consulate general in Los Angeles, he once said to the young pilots, it's very difficult. I was at a ceremony last night at one of the bases, and all the young pilots have to go with the families of the bereaved who are, 60s, 70s, whatever. And these young pilots who became pilots because they wanted to fly. They didn't sign up for this. And they felt, you could see from their body language, they feel uncomfortable. And Ron said very well to them, he said, guys, I want you to know, when you go and you meet these bereaved families, you think you're doing them a favor, but you're not. First you invite them to the memorial services, and then you invite them to your squadron parties, and you get to know them. And they give you 1,000 times back what you've given to them, because they give you a sense of purpose. And this is what Memorial Day means to me.
Definitely. And from all these stories and from your experience, we can obviously tell you've come a long way since you've been here. What's next?
Well, right now I'm one of the senior mentors or advisors to Space IL, which is, rather than rest on my laurels and, show my bar mitzvah pictures of what we did before, now I'm looking ahead, and Space IL is a project where Israel is actually going to land on the moon, hopefully, within the next 2 years. It's a Google Lunar X Prize. We're the entry to that, and we're the first team of all the teams to actually announce a launch contract. So we're heading in the right direction, and the sky is literally not the limit.
Well, definitely. I'm so happy we got to hear about all of this, and we're excited to see where this goes. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. Chag Sameach.
The IDF deputy chief caused a big controversy last week when he seemed to make a comparison between Nazi Germany and Israeli society. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz sat down to discuss the issue with Yossi Klein-Halevi, a senior fellow at the Shalom Hartman Institute.
In terms of what Yair Golan actually said, what he meant to say, what he should have said, I have no problem with him chastising Israeli society about certain developments, unthinkable developments that are happening on the fringes of our society. In the last 2 years, we've seen atrocities being committed by people on the Israeli far right, the burning of a 16-year-old Palestinian boy, something that was unthinkable in Israeli society in the past, the firebombing of a house in the West Bank village of Duma, which led to the burning of a baby. So those phenomenon and others need to be frankly confronted, along with an indifference to what's happening in certain mainstream circles in Israeli society. So that needs to be dealt with. The question is the language and the associations that the deputy chief of staff of the IDF invoked. On Yom HaShoah, not on Yom HaShoah. you compare the state of Israel in any fashion to Nazi Germany in the 1930s, and what do you think you're gaining by that? What are you achieving? Do you really think that Israelis are going, who don't already agree with you, are going to sit up and say, oh, wait a minute, we really need to think this through? The reaction, the understandably outraged reaction, created the opposite impact of what he was hoping to achieve. Instead of nurturing a mood of self-reflection, what he ended up doing is encouraging the usual Israeli self-righteousness. Those on the left who already agreed with him are loudly proclaiming how courageous he is, and those on the right who needed to hear his warning were immediately barricaded in outrage against the insensitivity or the recklessness of his language. So that's in terms of the impact domestically. It had the exact opposite impact of what he hoped to achieve. An educator, and he set himself up as an educator, needs to think about the impact of his words and needs to be sure that he doesn't place himself at the center of his teaching. It needs, the message has to be about what he's trying to convey and not his own person. And what ended up happening is, rather than debate the substance of his necessary warning, leaving aside the example he chose, the comparison that he invoked, the necessary warning about certain trends that are happening in Israeli society, what are we arguing about? We're arguing about whether Yair Golan is a patriot, whether he was smart, whether he chose his words well. That has the opposite effect of what an educator is supposed to achieve. Now that's domestically. Internationally, it's far worse. To have the deputy commander of the IDF open that door of comparing Israel in any fashion, and I don't believe that he intended to compare us to Nazi Germany, but that is the effect. At a time when we are under systematic attack around the world for our legitimacy, at a time when the boycott Israel movement is trying to turn us into the new Nazi Germany, to have the deputy chief of staff of the IDF seemingly confirm that line of attack. Now, what happened here? I mentioned earlier that the Jewish people is divided between two anxieties, the internal situation and the external. What he did was, in trying to deal with the internal threat, he ended up weakening us on the external threats that we face. You can't deal with you can't deal with one or the other of those threats that we're facing at the expense of the other. So in every way, Yair Golan failed us. He failed Israeli society. He failed to achieve the mission that he set out to accomplish. And it really makes me wonder about the basic judgment of a man who has Israeli society and has our fate in his hands.
Israeli Independence Day is just around the corner, and Israelis around the country are getting ready to celebrate. ILTV's Natasha Kirchuk is out on the streets of Tel Aviv to find out how they're preparing for this special holiday and why they love living in the Holy Land.
It's almost Israel's 68th birthday, so what do Israelis have to say about it? I'm here at one of the most popular beaches in Israel to find out. So it's almost Israel's 68th birthday. What are you planning to do to celebrate?
I'm planning to do a barbecue with friends.
Probably go to Kikar Rabin with some friends and watch the fireworks and then do a barbecue the next day.
I'm gonna see the sea, my favorite place, and I'll be with my dog, Puffy, which I love.
The sun is out, the sea is shining. What is there not to love about this beautiful country? Let's go check what Israelis have to say about their favorite things in the Holy Land.
Mostly the beaches, but also the weather. You know, coming from New York where it's like minus 25 to this is just unbelievable.
I think it offers a lot of both opportunity and good life. We've been traveling all around the world and we still like this place.
The beauty in this country. That's it.
If you could make one wish to Israel on her 68th birthday, what would it be?
At least another 68 years to go.
I hope that there will be peace and love and everyone can just get along.
And let's hope that we can keep some, as we're going now, keep the peace. Let's hope.
So if you could wish Israel a happy birthday, what would you say?
Well, first of all, happy birthday. And, well, here they say live to 120, but I'm going to say forever on this one. Just keep going, you know.
Happy birthday, Israel. Happy birthday, Puffy.
Mazal tov.
Mazal tov, Israel! This is Natasha Kirchuk reporting for ILTV from Tel Aviv.
We often hear about the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, but if there's one thing the two groups have in common, it's soccer. Former Israeli President Shimon Peres held a mini World Cup for peace that brought Israeli and Palestinian children together to enjoy their favorite game and work toward peace. The one-day event was organized by the Peres Center for Peace and included around 300 Israeli and Palestinian children, along with professional soccer players from the Israeli Premier League. Peres says he thinks the event is important because he believes the children are the people who can bring peace to the region.
We have unofficial relations which are totally different from the published one, from both sides. Even people that express themselves in a very, shall I say, unsupportable way. When we speak alone, they say, do whatever you can, that our children will live in peace, will bring peace. I think we represent a sentiment which is not less important than an official report.
And the event was definitely a hit with the kids, who said they want more people to come play together and encourage peace.
أنا مبسوط إني أجيت هون وبشجع العالم إنه يكونوا أصدقاء ويلعبوا مع بعض من أجل السلام.
המטרה של המיני מונדיאל זה בעצם לאחד כאילו לעשות תחרויות ספורטיביות שכל קבוצה יש בה גם מערבים וגם יהודים וככה ככה מפיצים בעצם את השלום בקרב הילדים.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is kadoregel, which means soccer in Hebrew. The word for soccer is actually made up of two words, kadur and regel. In Hebrew, kadur means ball and regel means foot, so the literal translation is football, which if you're European is probably what you call soccer. Israelis love soccer, and while they love Israeli teams, they also love cheering for some of the European stars. Some of their favorite European teams are Real Madrid and Barcelona, and Real Madrid forward Cristiano Ronaldo has even starred in a number of Israeli commercials this year. So if you're hanging out with your Israeli friends and need an icebreaker, just bring up your favorite soccer team, and you're sure to be the star of the conversation. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Today it's 75 and sunny in Tel Aviv. Tomorrow it should warm up to 76 degrees, but it will be partly cloudy. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.78 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.